a fine morning to return. Good morning and welcome to Sports Central. It's live and exclusive to Spectrum Television. My name is Isaac, and I'm quite excited and energized, as a matter of fact, to be back on the show this morning to take you through the biggest stories making rounds. It's a wonderful Wednesday morning and we're glad to be back. Thank you very much for joining. We'll take a look at the biggest stories from the Miami Open, big talking points from the Carlos Alcaraz chasing the Sunshine Double. We'll talk about Taylor Fritz and how he is next to continue chasing a WTA 1000 Masters event. We'll also take a look at the biggest stories from basketball this morning. Steph, the Chef Curry, was quite fantastic for his side, getting a victory as the Golden State Warriors continue their search to qualify for the playoffs. We'll talk about football too. Nigeria's under-23 team, the Olympic Eagles, failed to qualify for the African under-23 competition, which would have been a pathway to qualification for the Olympics. As it stands right now, 2 consecutive times the team has failed to qualify for the Olympics. For this and many more will form the crux of the conversation with you this morning. Before we get into all of this talk, let's take you through the biggest stories making rounds in Sport Wrap Up. It's time. Welcome.
Really improve in terms of its accuracy, its consistency.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by grossly abuse. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigerian police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Well, the conversation begins from tennis this morning, and for the ladies, Rybakina wins her 12th consecutive match to advance to the Miami semifinals. World number 7, and later Rybakina defeated Martina Trevisan 6-3, 6-love to advance to her 3rd semifinal of the season at the Miami Open. The victory extended Rybakina's current streak to 12. 23-year-old is down 2 wins away from becoming the 5th woman to complete the Sunshine Double, sweeping back-to-back titles at Indian Wells and Miami in a single season. Rybakina captured her first WTA 1000 title 2 weeks ago at Indian Wells, defeating world number 2 Aryna Sabalenka in the final to win her biggest title since Wimbledon. Rybakina will face world number 3 Pegula in the semifinals later tomorrow. She is on a record of 20 wins and 4 losses of the season, matching Sabalenka's record for tour-level wins this season. We're talking about the men. Carlos Alcaraz's red-hot form shows no sign of cooling. The defending champion produced another ruthless performance at the Miami Open, of course, on Tuesday when he dispatched Tommy Paul 6-4, 6-4 to earn his 9th consecutive win. Competing in front of a vocal crowd inside Hard Rock Stadium, the Spaniard brought fans to their feet with his electric shot making, producing drop shots, clean volleys, and an array of bruising winners to triumph after 1 hour and 36 minutes. Alcaraz is aiming to become the youngest player to win the Sunshine Double this week after lifting his 3rd ATP Masters 1000 crown at Indian Wells early this month. The 19-year-old who needs to capture his 3rd title of the season in Miami remains at number 1 at the ATP ranking to continue to his quest against world number 10 Taylor Fritz in the quarterfinals. Let's talk about boxing. Well, Anthony Joshua said that he will retire from boxing if American boxer Jeremy Franklin defeats him. The upcoming heavyweight boxing match between the duo is scheduled to hold on Saturday, April 1st at the O2 Arena in London. Joshua, who's a 2-time former unified world heavyweight champion, was earlier scheduled to fight Tyson Fury in a bout, but it was not held due to sponsorship issues. Joshua sees Saturday's bout as an opportunity to get back to form after losing to Usyk in August 2022. Talking about basketball, the Golden State Warriors played an inspired second half to recover from a 20-point deficit and defeat the New Orleans Pelicans 120-109 on Tuesday. As usual, the Warriors were led by reigning NBA Finals MVP Steph Curry with a game-high 39 points while adding 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 3 steals. Despite the loss, it was another strong performance for Pelican centerpiece Brandon Ingram. After his first career triple-double on Thursday and a career-high 13 assists on Saturday, Ingram again looked every bit of an all-NBA initiator with a team-high 26 points, 8 rebounds, and 7 assists. Finally, let's talk about football. Nigeria's under-23 Eagles lost 2-0 to Guinea in the final qualifiers for this year's under-23 AFCON in Morocco. Guinea progressed on to the AFCON 2-0 in aggregate after holding the under-23 Eagles to a goalless draw in Abuja. The defeat means that the under-23 Eagles will not feature at the football event at the 2024 Paris Olympics, and the team failed to qualify for the 2023 Olympics after failing to go past the group stage of the 2019 edition. And in Tuesday's second leg against Guinea, which was played in Rabat, Morocco, second half goals from Al-Gassime Ba and Al-Seni Souma sealed qualification for Guinea. Ba opened scoring in the 62nd minute before Souma doubled the lead with 15 minutes left. 2023 on the 23 AFCON, which will be the 4th edition, will be hosted by Morocco between 24 June to 8 July 2023. Well, those are the stories we have for you this morning. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we'll have Blind enjoy the conversation, and together we'll do justice to what's in the plate. Stick around, right back.
Nigerian police force, which is the only one allowed by cross them. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria police force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian police force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the Matters Council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
My lord, sorry, my lord, I think I'll be in course of
Legally Speaking, a program that deals with legal issues and questions we face as citizens of this amazing country, Nigeria. Legally Speaking. Join us every Friday from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. for Legally Speaking.
One truth not often told is about the transformation that Africa has undergone in recent decades. Africa is shaping its own destiny and should be referred to as the African opportunity. On Spotlight Africa, we paint the African picture the African way, laced with truth, detail, and the color of the African continent. Join Uyai Anyekan every Tuesday and Thursdays at 4:30 p.m. Spotlight Africa, telling the African story.
Every day, we bring you up-to-date information on topical issues affecting the common Nigerian.
From issues on politics,
Hello, Nigeria. I remain committed.
Security.
Education, health,
Lifestyle, and so much more. Join Janice Kobum and Uyai Anyeken
every weekday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Rise and Shine Daily, exclusive on Spectrum Television.
Really improve in terms of its accuracy, its consistency.
Nigerian police, which is the only one allowed by cross them. Our governors have to share police powers with the president as stipulated by the Constitution. We do not have a federal government police force. We have the Nigeria Police Force, which shall be administered, organized, and supervised by the Nigerian Police Force.
No, my lord, I want to say something. I want to say something here. Perhaps it might also enlarge the scope of people who should be invited here for examination. My lord, if we cannot find those who literally murdered Abiola, who are those people who could be said to be the beneficiaries of the death of Abiola?
Rogers has linked you with some of the killings he did.
He never did.
He linked you with the attempted murder of Hebrew.
He did not.
My lord, the matters council is leading the evidence in our matters.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord, but we can't be talking about cases which are in court.
Is this an adversary proceeding?
It's not, my lord. These cases are in court, my lord. I'm just reminding your lordship.
Welcome to Sports Central. My name is Blyden Kim, and the big talking points are here. The moment the boys and the men have been waiting for to do the magic and x-ray the very fine details in the world of sports. Beginning with tennis, we'll get to talk about one big player from a women's category, Elena Rybakina, hitting her 20th win for this year, joining Arina Sabalenka at the very top of who gets to be the best women's tennis player. Also talking about the men's, Carlos Alcaraz continues the magic. There are shockers here and there. The likes of Stefano Tsitsipas were beaten black and blue and out of the competition. The concern continue. But Anthony Joshua is talking big. He's saying, if I don't beat Jermaine Franklin come Saturday, I'll retire from boxing. Marizana, good to have you on the show.
Oh, it's a fantastic, wonderful Wednesday morning to be back. Blighted, loads of talking point to Anthony Joshua, talking really tough. Let's see what happens on April 1st. It's good to be back.
April 1st is where to talk about and do magic. But before we get to talk about boxing, let's see the very fine stories in the world of tennis. Beginning with the story surrounding Arina Rybakina. Arina Rybakina, world number 7, has showed dominance from Indian Wells, winning the Indian Wells and moving to the Miami Open with hopes of winning the Miami Open, making it a sunshine doubles. She defeated her opponent 6-3, 6-0, Travesan, to move to the next level of this competition. And she's taken her record to 20 wins so far, Arizona.
Yeah,
interesting features.
Definitely, Blyden makes a lot of sense for me. If you look at Rybakina, one of the two biggest names on tour this competition this season, apart from Sabalenka. Definitely, when we saw Swiatek crash out of the competition, we knew that it was going to be between both of them. Yeah. And Rybakina has done a fantastic job so far, gliding through the competition. She wants to win, the Sunshine Double. She won the Indian Wells a couple of weeks ago, and she wants to do a double, and it makes a lot of sense. You look at the quality and how she's put up performance in this competition. It shows you the class and what we should expect from this young lady going forward. And then definitely we're looking at top class opponents like Pegula, who she faces next in the competition, which for me will be another stand test as well, quality and how far she can go. Pegula has also been a fantastic player. Saved a few match points yesterday to defeat Potapova. So there's a lot expected. But I think if she talk about the Rybakina could get past Pegula, then she stands a big chance of winning the Sunshine Double.
Talking about the Sunshine Doubles and the big one that's happening in the world of tennis, let's quickly move to the men's game and see what the analyses and the actions were. Carlos Alcaraz will be the beginning of it. He showed some dominance, showing class, winning decent games for himself. He took on Tommy Paul, defeating the American big saver. Amid all the chants from the home fans, the American fans, it didn't deter Carlos Alcaraz winning Tommy Paul in straight sets, and we're seeing it happen again and again. And he's planning and hopeful that he can win the Sunshine Doubles.
Yeah, it makes sense. Carlos Alcaraz, Blyden, is the biggest name, and there's a lot at stake for the man. A chance to still stay at world #1 spot at the end of the competition, and a chance to win the Sunshine Double. It makes sense. And I look forward to seeing what he does in the competition. But so far, he's doing it gradually, getting there. Tommy Paul was never going to be a tough opponent for Carlos Alcaraz. If you look at Alcaraz and what he's done on tour this year, so sadly, it wasn't going to be an opponent. And look at the man of the win, was a dominant victory, one-sided, particularly 2 sets and bam, they were done. So that's the conversation. So it gets interesting because sadly Tsitsipas has crashed out now. Yeah. So the
struggle for Tsitsipas has continues been there, now from the Acapulco shoulder injury, definitely, and the inconsistency, the walkovers and the buy-free he had early in the competition. As expected, you talked about it yesterday. He wasn't really fully fit, much rusty, and it was going to come at the end of it, he'll be beaten. But let's look at a big talking point. Carlos Alcaraz taking on Taylor Fritz today. Taylor Fritz, big player, dropped from world number 5 2 weeks ago. He reached, which we talked about, and now he's world number 10, taking on world number 1 Carlos Alcaraz. Taylor Fritz had beaten his opponent, but setting up the template for this one, beating Holgerun, and now he's facing Carlos Alcaraz. What are we expecting?
Well, big game, Blyden. First of all, Holgerun is a youngster whose game is similar to Carlos Alcaraz's game, particularly. Both were youngsters, came through the national ATP level that year and all of that. But I think it's going to be an interesting matchup for both players. For Carlos Alcaraz, he faces an informed top player in Taylor Fritz. We saw what Taylor Fritz did, especially towards the end of last season. Helped his team as much as possible. The United Cup competition was the biggest performer for Team USA and all of that. But lately, it's been a downturn, inconsistent form for the man. So I think the game comes in quite good for both players. It will be a test of their quality. But games like this, you have to give it to Carlos Alcaraz already, because that he's going to exert dominance in games like this. But I'm not writing off Taylor Fritz, and I think that he can get a chance at this game if he takes the boxes, all of the boxes later tomorrow.
Well, big game for the likes of Yannick Sinner, who did the magic in the previous game. Now he's taking on Emil Rosevery, moving forward in the round of 16. But the antecedents are there, a big talking point there. We get to talk about them when we return tomorrow in tennis. Let's move swiftly into the big talking points in NBA basketball. One of the biggest talking points, Arizona, would be about Steph Curry hitting the numbers, 39 massive points in this morning's game. He showed class and dominance, especially when you look at the performances of the Warriors in recent times. They're struggling a bit, but it had to be one man who did the magic for them against the Pelicans, Steph Curry. He's back as if he never left.
Definitely, Blyden, was a good win for the Warriors. You look at the performance here and there, quite consistent, but it's good that they're getting themselves back on track and chasing that qualification for the playoffs. At some point in this game, they were trailing by 20 points, 64-43. They had to take second half dominance, and Steph Curry, championed that dominance for the team and was good at the right, helped the team to that victory. He's always been their star man. That's why he's there for them. And then let's look at the resurgence, and it makes sense for me. So, well, let's see what happens. Right now, they're still shaky at that number 6 position, fighting it with likes of the Timberwolves and the rest of them in that radar. But let's see what happens from them. It was a good win. Right now, they stand at 40 wins and 37 losses, and it should make sense for them.
Well, good energy back for them. In this particular game, you could see Steph Curry doing the magic for them, hitting 3-pointers from 8 positions, and it made all the sense. If there's a man that gives you the 3-pointers, it's Steph all the time.
Definitely.
And good that he's turning up to the party.
Yeah, he's a king of the 3-pointers.
Jordan Poole had 21 points in this one too. And some other players did the magic they could to put them in pole position.
Yeah, good supporting role from Jordan Poole and the rest of them. Fantastic performance. But you always have to talk about Steph Curry. He's a king of 3-pointers. And when he wants to show boots, he makes an attempt and doesn't even look. And it shows you the quality. But let's see what the Warriors do, because the season have not been quite palatable if we look at it from a holistic perspective. So let's see what they can get to do towards the end of the season, and if they can secure that playoff spot at number 6 position. But holistically, it was a fine win yesterday. Sadly, for the New Orleans Pelicans, since Zach Williamson have left the team, Brandon Ingram, fantastic player, but just not consistent enough to help the team towards that level. And secondly, no supporting player for him. So the two conversations go hand in hand, but sadly, it was a poor win, a poor loss for them rather. But let's see what the Warriors do from here.
Let's talk about another thrilling one. Exciting stuff that happened in a game between the Cleveland side, the Cleveland Cavaliers, against the Atlanta Hawks. Atlanta Hawks beating Cleveland side 120-118. Big talking point was about one man, Arizona, Donovan Mitchell, hitting 44 points for the Cleveland side, but it wasn't good enough. And look at the history of the Cleveland side in a season. He's now equaled LeBron James' record of 10 consecutive, not consecutive now, 10, 40 and above points in a season. It all started with that 70-pointer he had early part of the year, but it's not really added up for them in this particular one because of the loss against Atlanta Hawks.
Sadly, Blyden, it's a case of a team that has just one superstar, no supporter. Donovan Mitchell, fantastic performance. Monday, we talked about the Cavaliers qualifying for the playoffs for the first time since 2015. And the man who's been in the forefront was Donovan Mitchell, and it shows you quality. But against the Atlanta Hawks, it was a case of a holistic team performance from the Hawks, and then against just one man at the Mitchell from this side. So that was a conversation. But of course, the man put up a fine performance and then could exonerate himself from the blames because he had a fantastic performance. Like you said, 10, 40-plus points in a season. The last man to do it for the Cavaliers was LeBron James. It shows you quality. But holistically, the team would have to do better. Well, they've qualified for the playoffs right now. It's about keeping it fit and keeping it in form and completing the series and making sure that you're in good shape for the playoffs. Let's see what happens.
Guess what about the consequence of this result?
Yeah.
the Milwaukee Bucks became champion in the Central Division as a result of this result, because the Cleveland were the closest opening to that, of setting anything, but it didn't have to happen.
It was never going to happen, Blyden. The margins were wide. The Cleveland already had 52 wins. It wasn't a matter of if, it was a matter of when for the Bucks, right? Because they were dominant. They were entirely dominant this season.
For a fifth season in the Central Division, they've been champions.
Well, Blyden, look at the Central Division, which is the biggest name there for the past 5 years.
Absolutely.
It's a Milwaukee Bucks.
Absolutely.
So that's the thing. So it's not even a thing of conversation, sadly, but let's see what happens for all of these teams at the playoffs, because it's the playoffs where you decide quality. It's a point where you test your mettle. That's a conversation. So kudos to the Milwaukee Bucks, but they had no competition at the Central Division.
Well, let's talk about those with huge struggles. It will be the Boston Celtics. We've seen the performances of Boston Celtics. They've gone up a bit and then they drop. And same story, same old for them. After having that winning streak at some point, they were the best team in the NBA. But in recent times, they're beginning to slow down Arizona. It was that moment where you expected them to do well against the Wizards. But the Washington Wizards did the magic, defeating them 130-111. Quite concerning from that standpoint, because we're getting closer to the playoffs. And you need teams to be informed getting to the playoffs, but it's not adding up for them. They seem exhausted.
Well, for the Boston Celtics, Blyden, I think the last 10-15 games for them has been quite torrid, because they started the season on a fine note. The first team to get 20 wins, 25 wins and all of that, but sadly, they've not been able to get consistency, and that's a sad thing, because I was thinking that they were going to, for the first time in a long time, topple the Milwaukee Bucks and get some level of quality, but it hasn't happened. That's a conversation. But then I think it's been here and there, injury concerns, inconsistency. They look exhausted too, fatigue. A conversation, because they play sometimes 4 or 5 games in the space of 12, 13 days, and that's a conversation. So let's see what happens to this team, moving forward. They've qualified for the playoffs, which is a good thing for them. But then there should be some consistency towards the end of the season in order to build momentum for the playoffs.
Justin Tatum had 28 massive points and that's 9 rebounds, but it wasn't enough, because he compared to what Porzingis had, massive 32 points, 13 rebounds and 6 assists, and that speaks volume about the quality in this particular game from both sides.
Yeah, Kristaps Porzingis, fine performer, Blyden, and of course the Wizards were short-handed too. They lost a few of their key performers, but they were good enough to win the Celtics, and it shows you how poor the Celtics have been for the past couple of days. So that's the conversation. But if you look at the energy from the Wizards side lately, we're seeing some level of resurgence, which could make sense. Well, they're chasing some qualification of a sort, which I think they will get at the end of the season. But right now, there is no better way to defeat a team than defeating the team that went to the finals last season. Makes sense for me.
Big excitement and talking points in the world of basketball and NBA. We draw the curtain on NBA right now. When we return, we get to talk about big stories in football all the way. Talking point has been one of the marker ones, and when we return, we also get to look at Anthony Joshua's story, where he says he's going to retire from boxing if he can defeat the opponent on Saturday rather. When a man is a champion, it's always going to be difficult for him to face defeats. That had been the story of Anthony Joshua. By the way, it's Sports Central. If you're just joining us, my name is Blyden Lukem and Marizon is still here with me. Anthony Joshua says, come Saturday, he's going to defeat Franklin. And he's saying this with full authority, and he says, if I don't defeat him, I'll retire from boxing, Marizona. German Franklin, top performer. The pressure is coming for Anthony Joshua. Let's begin the conversation this way. What gets to happen if he loses this one? Because we've seen the performances of German Franklin. Prior to his last loss, which was unanimous decision, he was very decent. So many knockouts, about 14 knockouts he's had. And now he's facing Anthony Joshua. And from stories coming in, he's lost some weight and he's also added some packs.
Well, Blyden, here's the thing. It's simple. You're asking if what will happen if he loses. He said he's going to retire. So let's see if he retires. But I think he better wins German Franklin. This is a chase redemption. Anthony Joshua was once the unified heavyweight champion. he's dropped the pecking order down.
He was in the unified.
Yeah, he's once world heavyweight champion.
Yeah.
You know, and he's dropped down the pecking order. Yeah, had 3 belts. He's dropped down the pecking order, lost all of them. At some point, lost 2 back-to-back fights. So he's dropped down.
In 5 fights, he's lost 3.
Yeah, and it's poor, particularly so. This is his chance to get it back to the limelight. If he loses this fight, it's done for him, particularly. So he has to win this fight because this is a chase to redemption. That's the conversation, and then all of that boils down to, first of all, I also like the mentality, Blyden. I like the fact that he's putting a lot of pressure on himself to get this win, because definitely this is a game about that will determine a lot of Joshua's career. So that's the conversation, but I hope for the very best for him, and I hope he's learned lessons from those 2 back-to-back losses against Usyk. That's the conversation. Franklin is not also a pushover, but of course, if you want to talk about peak Anthony Joshua and compare that to Jeremy Franklin, Joshua gets the win anytime, any day. Well, right now, you don't know which Joshua to expect. You know, for a man who lost back-to-back to Usyk, you don't know what to expect, but I hope he wins this game, and I hope he gets himself back on track.
Well, the good thing is, a man gets to prepare for retirement and doesn't get to retire by surprise. He's already talked about his plans of retirement soon, that when he retires, he will be away from all the pressure of boxing. He'll get to chill, according to his words. Let's look at one talking point. How difficult is the life of a boxer, Marizona? Because you listen to Anthony Joshua talk about retirement, it seems like the man can't wait to retire.
Well, Blyden, first of all, it's interesting to see, particularly because we're talking about pressure every time. We're talking about competition every single time, and then, you know, boxing is one sport that, you know, it affects your ego.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely, because
either you get beaten or you beat someone else.
Or you beat somebody. So it's an ego problem. We know what happens when you cannot control your ego and when something attacks your ego. So that's the conversation.
And if you're beaten too much, you might end up in the hospital frequently afterwards.
Definitely. So your ego drops down. So that's the conversation. So there's a lot at stake for Anthony Joshua, and the life of a boxer is not easy because, first of all, once you're champion, everybody wants to fight you.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to
beat you.
You have to
train and train hard.
You have to be at that top level every single time. The moment you lose a game, you're no more considered relevant. So it's interesting to see, and that's why we see them wanting to retire already, because the competition is massive. People wake up every day, win 3 fights and call you out.
They don't have a normal life.
You understand? So that's the conversation, but I hope he gets himself back on track.
Absolutely.
I still think Joshua has got a lot to offer to boxing before he finally calls time in his career. That's the conversation from here.
Wishing Joshua good moments moving forward in his next fight come April 1. Saturday is the day. Exciting stuff, and will take place at the O2 Arena in London. Let's get to talk about football stories at the very best of it. One sad story would be from a Nigerian point of view. The under-23 Eagles, the dream teams they call them, went away at Rabat to take on Guinea after a goalless draw in Abuja, but the disappointments continued. They lost 2-0 in Rabat. Now they can qualify for the Nations Cup, which set a template to what could happen for the next 3 teams to qualify for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. We've seen the performances of Nigeria at the Olympic Games. Last 2 editions now, the previous edition in Tokyo, Nigeria didn't participate, they couldn't qualify, and now the same story.
Well, Blyden, utterly disappointed, you know, sadly, and Salisu Yusuf is the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Now, in 2019, when the Olympic Eagles went to the under-23 African, they lost to South Africa in the quarterfinals, couldn't get to the semi-finals to qualify for the Olympics. It was Salisu Yusuf there. Fast forward to 4 years from then, same man. Now, the sad thing is, this man has come under media spotlight for being accused of, convicted of bribery and corruption. In the build-up to this second game, we saw that he dropped loads of home-based players and picked up a lot of foreign-based players, right? There's no smoke without fire. Connects the dots, Blyden. This man is not supposed to be here till now. And
there were talks of bribery, bringing players from lowly league side, 5th division in Portugal, to play for the under-23 side.
It doesn't make any sense. Come on. It doesn't make any sense. This man has got a track record of bribery and corruption in the CV.
Here's a surprise for me, Mari. Yeah. Because if you handle the side, 2019 he couldn't qualify for the competition, why give the same man the same job in 2022, 2023?
That's a question for the NFF. And it shows you that the rot, the catastrophe in Nigerian football goes from top to bottom. That's the conversation. So we sit here and moan every single day, but obviously those guys might not have football in their hearts when they go there. That's the conversation, because if we want to talk about it, Salisu Yusuf should not be there at the NFF technical committee. I wonder how he gets appointed. Augustine Eguavon, the same story.
Yeah.
You know, so we'd mention loads of names who want to sit here.
The moment you want an interim manager for the Super Eagles, Augustine Eguavon.
You can imagine the conversation. Now, no disrespect to all of them, the legends in their own right, but of course, let's move on from sentiment. If
let's go for what's working. It's not working. Let's leave it.
It's not working. That's the conversation too. Obviously, Blyden, except the NFF have got plans for Nigeria because, of course, it's a new leadership in Musa Gusau. But if these men stay here to the end of the year, then maybe those men at the glass house do not value football in the country and do not want to do anything tangible for football in Nigeria. That's all I can say.
Well, the NPFL is back, and first game after the first stanza had stopped because of elections and international break, its return and the excitements are up. We saw Akwa United do the magic, beating Shooting Stars over the weekend. Up next for them would be Bendel Insurance. And Akwa United coach Ayeni says, Bendel Insurance are not invincible. We can beat them. Maizuna, he's talking tough, big talking point, but we've seen all the teams try to beat Bendel Insurance. It's not working out. Coach Finidi George said the same thing. We're going to end the run for Bendel Insurance. Ended 1-1. Insurance are still...
And Baran.
Insurance are still in short.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's ridiculously interesting because Bendel, the first game of the season, thrashed Akwa United.
2-0.
At home.
At home.
You know,
now they're going away.
You're telling me we know these things, but definitely look at Akwa United. A lot has changed from match day 1 till now. Akwa have become a lot more solid, a lot more decent, a lot more proper. It's a case of just 4 or 5 points separating Bendel and Akwa United. Akwa United sits second in the table, so there's a chance at maybe defeating them and all of that. But you look at Bendel, a decent football team, Blyden, a properly managed football team.
The Benin Arsenal.
Oh my God, Blyden. So it'll be difficult for Akwa United to get a victory. First of all, away from home.
You sound in love with Bendel Insurance.
No, not really. I love when I see, first of all, offsets. I love when I see a football team that is not, you know, surrounded by controversy, no too many big names, just a bunch of young boys who are ready to take the world by storm.
You know, often you categorize their performance as fairy tale, but it can. Because fairy tale sounds like they're a bit struggling, but they're finding their way.
Fairy tale sounds like luck.
Yeah. But when you look at Bendel Insurance,
they're intentional, Blyden.
Come on.
They intentionally get these wins. It's a deliberate thing.
And they came from the NNL.
And it shows you, it makes a lot of sense.
And showed all the big teams how to do the magic.
Let's also give Akwa United some slack. Come on, let's give them a chance. It's a 50-50 game for me.
It's up for you to do it.
It's a 50-50 game for me. Akwa United have got a chance. I love the fact that both of the players are turning up. Olisema, Cyril, Oche Collins, and the rest of them getting to rally around the team and get wins. But like I said, it will be difficult to defeat this very solid Bendel team. But let's see what happens. I hope Dejaini has the formula to defeat Bendel later today.
Question is, what is the formula? That's a question. Aimba talked about it. They couldn't find the formula. What could be the formula to beating Bendel Insurance? Top side, especially when you're away from home. Time will tell. We'll get to talk about it when we return. Also, yesterday we saw some Euro qualifiers, Euro 2024 qualifiers. The excitement had been up. But a shocking result, Scotland defeating Spain. And one man, unlikely source. For Manchester United, he plays in the midfield. But for Scotland, he plays from the defense line. Scoring stoners, a double for Scotland. One name comes to mind, McTominay. Not often you get to, when you're looking for a scorer and the scorer shit, it has to be McTominay. Surprising for you, it was Marizona.
Oh, Blyden, this international break is for defenders. Nathan Ake scored twice 2 days ago. What's his name? Benjamin Pavard of France scored a stunner. And then Scott McTominay, the stone that Ten Hag has rejected, being a chief cornerstone at Scotland, makes a lot of sense.
Well, he can't offset Casemiro from the team anyway.
Definitely. So, but it's good that he's performing for his national team. He's a key core part of the team, and it makes sense. Fantastic win, and you know, to show you how immense the win was, to defeated Spain, a very solid Spanish national team. It's a new coach, you know, Luis de la Fuente, as the coach of the Spanish side. They're still trying to get themselves back on track and all of that, but it was a convincing, decent win for Scotland, and kudos to Scott McTominay. Maybe he could make a case for himself for United, probably come back and be deployed in a whole different role for Manchester United when he comes
Let's talk about Spain. Losing 2-0. Now the pressure mounts on the new coach now. Is it an embarrassing result for them?
I think for Spain, it's a case of the journey towards redemption. Spain since 2010 have not been Spain. I mean, they've struggled.
Well, not against Scotland.
Yeah, well the truth is, you look at the Spanish national team. First of all, it's the fact there is this relative inconsistency in the lineups, right? It's a new coach now. before it was Enrique. They performed well at the World Cup, at the Euros, back-to-back competitions.
It was more eccentric Barcelona.
Exactly. Now it's a new coach, a new system. You know, there's a lot to expect, and this should be one of his first games. So there's a lot to, you know, be tweaked and adjusted in the course of, you know, his time as manager. So let's see what happens on a more consistent basis. But I just cannot use this game to judge them. They look totally disjointed at the game against Scotland. Scotland were a lot more organized, and that was the conversation too. Let's give him some slack and then let him have 10 games for the team first of all.
Well, talking about friendly games now, new outlook for the Belgium side, new coach, new excitement for them. But the big names are turning up to the party for Belgium. Since 1954, they were able to beat Germany, and finally they did it against the German. Lukaku, Kevin De Bruyne, Lukaku is the highest goal scorer for Belgium, making the numbers for them, but the excitements are up when they get to beat a team like Germany, Marizona.
Yeah, it's interesting to see, Blyden. For the German national team, they look done and dusted. They look out. You know, and I just cannot.
The struggles of the World Cup continue.
I just cannot pinpoint, Blyden, where the problem is, because they've got stars, fine players in that team who are doing well for their respective clubs.
The bulk of them play for Bayern Munich.
Yeah, the manager is a former Bayern manager too. You know, so he should be. You know, it should be easy for him to get the best out of these players because the system at Bayern has not changed, the culture has not changed, particularly so. Why are they struggling? It's a big question. So obviously, it's a case of more than what we see. But I think Bayern have got a lot to, because Belgium are just getting themselves back on track after they were struggling against Martinez. They've got a new look team with a new manager too, so they should be able to get a victory against Belgium. But the way they played yesterday didn't show anything convincing and impressive. That's very sad.
What's the biggest problem for Germany? Let's X-ray it.
Well,
we saw at the World Cup, big talking point for them at the World Cup was that defensive midfield mode. We've seen in world football now, even while we analyze games between Nigeria and Guinea-Bissau, the concern has always been the midfield. But the German side seemed to always concentrate on their attack, putting a lot of numbers of attackers, running you riot, but these days it's not working out for them.
Well, here's the thing, Blyden. Maybe they haven't paid too much attention to the back line.
Okay.
Yeah, because Germany barely create top-class defenders. Have you observed, Blyden?
Absolutely.
That's the conversation. They've got fine attackers, beautiful midfielders.
Fine wingers.
Fine wingers. But they're
maybe
barely...
not the biggest of names from midfield, but when it has to do with the plethora of attack, beautiful.
They've got it. Even at midfield position, Leon Goretzka in his day is a fantastic midfielder. We're talking about Jamal Musiala, a lot more attacking. Joshua Kimmich, you know, and all of that.
That holding midfielder. Scarcely can you look at the French side typically over time.
Well, I think,
you can mention scattered around and some of the big sides.
The German football culture maybe does not prioritize the holding midfielder. They
That's
prefer
why
somebody running.
Those days they call them the German machines.
Because they just run.
Absolutely.
You know, but the conversation is that back line. Jerome Boateng was maybe for me the last decent player, and it was a Ghanaian. Mats Hummels was good at top points but not decent. Now the biggest name, you can imagine, the biggest name at German defense is Niklas Süle, and it's not good enough. So maybe the Germans are paying less attention to the back line, and that's where they're struggling. That's the conversation.
The struggle continues for Germany, but let's talk about where there are also struggles. Manchester United, they've set up a bid for Hurricane Mario. Hurricane, he's gotten to the 30 years mark. And quite concerning. How long do you get to sign a player of this magnitude? Yes, when it has to do with goals, he's having it. Notching the goals, but now Manchester United, they're looking at that direction. Well, they seem to be looking at everybody from Victor Osimhen and now Hurricane.
Yeah, first of all, Osimhen, Napoli have said Osimhen would come for £150 million. But United are tabling £80 million for Hurricane, and they think Hurricane will come in a lot cheaper and a lot more effective because he's been in the league for a long time. He understands the league, and of course, will definitely score goals. So it's a thing of priority, and of course, money plays a huge role in all of these conversations. But
one is 24, the other one is past 30.
It's 30 and all of that. So let's see what happens at the end of the day. I think it's just about paper talk, and you know there is no intentionality yet for United across both sides because they're trying to first of all complete the takeover, you know, and all of that. So let's see if the takeover is done first, then we can talk about who is getting in, because maybe the Qataris can come in and say, well, the Osimhen is 150, let's pay 200. You know, that's the conversation. So all of that will be done after they've got a new owner.
What's the new bid at the takeover now?
Well, as the last we checked, Sheikh Jassim said, of course, they've improved the bid to around £6 billion for United, and that should make sense because he's tilting towards, you know, offsetting United's debt, you know, investing £1 billion into the training, to the academies. I mean, more money for United too. If the Rain Group and the Glazer family decide to sell off the stakes to the Qatari businessman, the banker, maybe money, and more money for Manchester United. And it should make sense, definitely, because you look at Newcastle and Manchester City, what money has done to them. I mean, my mouth cannot say.
Often they say, what money cannot do, more money can do it.
Obviously.
The big expectations for Manchester United. Question would be, what's keeping the Reigns group? Let's get to know who gets to win the bid. And Manchester United should be sold. And we know if the money will start rolling. This is where we draw the curtain on today's edition of Sports Central. My name is Blyden. My zona has been the man that does the magic with me.
Thank you very much, Blyden. It was a good show again. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a good show.
Always loud on it. Come on, take it easy.
Oh, well, you know, the energy is high. The energy is high.
Thank you for watching. Thank you, Mari.